Tonight on The Story.
I would say it's at a crisis level right now in Oregon.
Shoplifting and organized retail crime skyrocketing.
Well, the people that are breaking the law have been given a free pass.
Our investigators watched it happen time and time again, even confronting those who walked out of a store with their arms full of stolen merchandise.
Can I just ask you, what do you do with all the stolen merchandise?
Plus, we're following the money in several consequential races in our region, from the race for Oregon governor to 2 congressional seats that are anything but slam dunks. Who is and is not putting their money on the line? And it's a monstrous melee in the sea, all caught on camera. What first looked like orcas playing near the surface was soon revealed to be quite the battle that humans don't often get to see. Here's The Story. I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, a bunch of years ago, I was in downtown Portland and I heard some shouting and I looked over to see what was going on. And a guy burst out of a small store doorway running and carrying a stack of t-shirts that he'd just stolen. The owner was running after him, yelling and cursing. As I recall, he got away. Back then, that was unusual, and I think that's why I still remember it today. But man, the times have changed. And that's our top story. Today, that kind of theft, shoplifting, is so common in our city, it's normal to see armed security guards at the doors of stores. And things like laundry detergent, razors, shaving cream, baby formula, they're all locked up. Shoplifting is out of control. Police say it's fueled by drug addiction. For many residents, it's one more sign of just how far our area has fallen into lawlessness. Why aren't the crooks being stopped? And where's all that stolen stuff going? Kyla Boshi reports.
It's more than just shoplifting. It's organized retail theft, which got me curious after watching these videos posted online. They show people ripping off stores, like this Target in North Portland.
Y'all stealing?
I mean, it looks like they're stealing a lot of stuff, with no real fear of getting caught. In many ways, it kind of reflects some of the broader issues we're dealing with in our city, like crime, accountability, and drugs.
What's the problem? This is the kind of community I don't want to live in, man. People take shit out of the store. Because I just watched them take 8 of those sweaters off the rack and walk straight out.
Tell me about this video. I'm fascinated by it.
I just see stuff getting loaded into a shopping cart.
Sean is the guy who shot the video last September. He didn't want me to show his face.
People go about their day oblivious to these kinds of activities that are going on. Unfortunately, it's becoming more and more common.
He worked in loss prevention for years.
For Fred Meyer, for Safeway, for Home Depot.
But got out because it was just too frustrating.
During that time, I've just seen things get more and more challenging and more difficult.
Most retailers, they don't allow their workers to physically stop shoplifters. It's too risky. People get hurt. Instead, they just take the loss. And the bad guys have figured that out. Last year in Portland, there were more than 3,000 cases of shoplifting reported to police. But that's likely a gross undercount. A recent survey found in most shoplifting cases, Portland retailers, they don't even bother filing police reports, citing a lack of police response, lack of prosecution. The incidents are just low level or company policy.
I would say it's at a crisis level right now in Oregon.
How so?
Just the amount of groups that we see coming into stores on a daily basis. We see some of the same individuals that are hitting multiple retailers every single day.
Jeremy Gerard is with the Oregon Retail Crime Association of Oregon.
Who's getting hit?
Every retailer.
Big and small?
Big and small, yes.
He says some stores, again, these are individual stores, are losing as much as $1 to $5 million a year to theft.
And what kind of stuff is being stolen?
You know, anything that has a resale value is typically being targeted. Some of the items that we see that are stolen most often are fragrances, high-end purses, Levi, Nike.
So to protect themselves, stores are locking down items, like detergent, leaving shelves empty, and hiring armed security as a deterrent. But even that isn't enough. There's a stream of stolen merchandise just walking out the door.
In the time we've been driving around this huge parking lot, what's the likelihood that someone has committed a theft?
I'd say it's pretty likely. I've almost surprised we haven't seen someone run out of doors. We drove by a few of these businesses.
It's that common.
It's that common, yes.
These stores are being hit on a daily basis.
On a daily basis, yes.
More than once?
More than once.
This surge in retail theft not only puts workers and shoppers at risk, but also drives up prices. And the crime, it bleeds into surrounding neighborhoods.
They'll just walk from the Nike store, come down here.
Oftentimes with armful of clothes and sneakers.
Paul Greenidge is a pastor at New Song Community Church in Northeast Portland. It sits just a block away from the Nike community store, which has become a target for thieves. They come running through the church parking lot with stolen merchandise all the time.
What's your reaction when you see those videos?
Holy cow. Did they really do that? I'm a little, it's like.
Because it's so blatant.
Yes, exactly. I was going to use the word brazen. It's like, really?
The pastor believes this crime, retail theft, it tears at the fabric of our community.
It seems like this cuts deeper than just shoplifting.
Well, I think it speaks to the general idea that when the law is in place to help people do the right thing, and when the law is broken and it's not enforced, I think that's our problem. And so the people that are breaking the law have been given a free pass.
The solution? Retailers say they need more help from police, basically more officers. And prosecutors have got to go after shoplifters. Plus, there need to be tougher laws. And they make another important point here. We're not talking about people stealing food to survive. This is organized retail crime. It involves people stealing merchandise to be resold. Over the years, police have busted some major crime rings that move from store to store or city to city, which does raise an interesting question. Where's all this stolen merchandise going? I mean, just sitting outside the Nike store, we've seen all kinds of people walk right by security, then run off with armfuls of clothing right off the rack, and shoe boxes as many as they can hold. And it's coordinated, right? There's cars oftentimes sitting waiting for them as a getaway.
Look at this guy, right now. Go.
Here we go.
Can I just ask you, what do you do with all the stolen merchandise? I'm a reporter. I'm with Channel 8. Can you tell me, do you sell it to someone?
Yeah, your wife's boyfriend, sir.
What can we do as a community to help stop this? Do you sell it to someone?
I just told you your wife's boyfriend.
Well, that didn't get us very far. Store security did confirm all that stuff, it was stolen. Police, they offer a better explanation. Basically, someone steals merchandise. They're called a booster. They sell the stolen goods to a middleman or fence, often in exchange for drugs or maybe drug money. It's not uncommon for drug addicts to steal just enough to get by for the day. The stolen goods are then listed and sold at a deep discount on platforms like OfferUp, Craigslist, or eBay. Sometimes they're even sold at secondhand stores or flea markets.
And a lot of this happens right out in the open. I mean, we've been watching people haul all kinds of stolen stuff out of these stores at Mall 205. At Home Depot, one guy had a backpack full of stuff, walks right past security to cash registers, nobody stops him. Others are running off with detergent through the parking lot, stolen shoes. One guy in particular, we watched him coming out of Target with this huge box and appliance. He goes over to some other vehicle and they talk for a while, so we decide to follow him. Well, next thing you know, they're walking down the street with the appliance. They end up at some different store, another retailer, where they unload it. And it's this cycle that has neighbors, retailers, and police all really frustrated. Retail theft is happening at a scale we haven't seen before, leading some stores to close and others to reduce their hours. It's also helping to fuel drug addiction and contributing to this theme that in many cases, there just aren't consequences for criminals.
Kyle joins me now. And Kyle, it's amazing to see that video and so infuriating. Theft has always been an issue for retailers, but obviously it's a lot more visible and more brazen now. What can be done? How do we stop this?
There is movement on this issue. In September, Oregon created a statewide retail crime task force to improve collaboration between retailers, prosecutors, and police. And I actually sat in on one of their meetings this week. There were a lot of people there, and they talked a lot about ways they can tackle this problem. Washington created a similar task force in June, as have many other states, which are putting money directly behind investigators to work these types of cases.
I mean, and part of the incredible part is that it seems like there's no consequences. So these people are just feel like they have free reign. These are not easy cases, though, to put together, right? For police and prosecutors, they do take a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Retail theft, those cases can be time consuming because individual crimes, you think about it, they often involve relatively small dollar losses, resulting in maybe misdemeanor charges. To hold repeat thieves accountable on serious felony charges, investigators, they've got to link several crimes to a defendant, which sometimes involve multiple stores in different jurisdictions. So there's a lot of work involved.
Yeah, and while the amounts are relatively minor in the big scheme of things, I'm sure it's major for the people, the retailers who are being ripped off. All right, what about this? Is there anything we can do? People are seeing these things while they're out shopping.
I think it's really important that folks remember, don't try and intervene, really for the same reason that those workers are told not to. You don't want to get hurt, end of the day. It's just not worth it. And also, in the story, we talked about how many of these items, they end up online. They're resold. Well, don't buy those items. If you're going on eBay, for instance, or OfferUp to buy Tide laundry detergent pods, obviously that's just not a good idea. Think about it. You're helping to fuel this crime and, frankly, the drug activity that goes right along with it.
Thanks, Kyle. Interesting and disturbing.
Up next on The Story. So many political races in Oregon and Southwest Washington have huge implications for the future of our communities. But in at least 2 local congressional races, national Democrats are now spending their money elsewhere. Are they signaling it's a lost cause? Plus, another Phil Knight donation in Oregon's race for governor. Details when The Story returns.
Welcome back. Let's talk politics. The election is 12 days away, and so is the day the political ads will stop playing on your TV screen. Just saying, something to look forward to. So many races are so tight this year, and we've looked at the polls for a glimpse of how candidates are doing, but tonight, let's look at something different. Let's look at the money to see where the big money is going. That's often an indicator of where the pros think the race is really headed. And right now, there are two notable local races where it appears the big money national folks have decided the risk is not worth the investment. Up first, Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez. She's the Democrat battling Republican Joe Kent in Southwest Washington. The Washington Post reports that Gluesenkamp-Perez has not received any direct money from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, also known as the DCCC. No money to help with ads. That group only exists to support Democratic candidates nationwide. She's also being blanked by the House Majority PAC, which is also supporting House Democrats around the country. The lack of that funding for Gluesenkamp-Perez seems to show that the national folks don't believe she can win. The candidate was at our studio today for the taping of Straight Talk. Laurel Porter asked her about that lack of national Democratic support.
I am proud to be running an independent race, and I'm proud that my dollars are by and large coming from Washington State. I haven't been fundraising in Dallas, Texas, or Mar-a-Lago or Washington, D.C. This race is a grassroots race being funded by people in Washington State. And so I'm really proud to continue to be an independent voice for our district. And so it's frustrating that, you know, the DCCC is doing their own thing, but I'm really proud of continuing to run an independent race.
The other candidate is Democrat Jamie McLeod Skinner, battling Republican Lori Chavez DeRemer for Oregon's 5th congressional district seat. It looks like national Republicans are betting on this race, and national Democrats, not so much. The Oregonian points out that McLeod Skinner raised and spent twice as much money over the summer as Chavez DeRemer. But now, with the race considered one of the top 10 that are most likely to decide which party controls the U.S. House, yes, in that race, national Democratic spending on McLeod Skinner is far behind Republican spending on Chavez DeRemer. The paper reports the Congressional Leadership Fund, which is the Republican Party's super PAC, has spent $5.3 million to help Chavez DeRemer. In contrast, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has spent $1.85 million to help McLeod Skinner, and the House Majority PAC has spent nothing. Now, nearly $2 million is not a small amount, but those numbers do seem to show that national Republicans believe their money is being well spent in the campaign, and perhaps national Democrats do not. And while the national Democrats are keeping their wallets mostly closed in those two races, the bank account seems to be wide open for gubernatorial candidate Tina Kotek. The same goes for Republicans and their candidate in our race here, Christine Drazan. Let's take a look at the money in the Oregon governor's race now. And we've been talking about Democrats for the last few minutes, so let's start by checking in on the Republican, Drazan's campaign bank account. She has over $1.6 million available to spend. Just 2 days ago, by the way, the Republican Governors Association, that's the fundraising arm of the GOP, they dumped in another $500,000. That brings their total contributions to Drazan's campaign to just over $5.8 million bucks. And there's another big contribution worth mentioning. Nike co-founder Phil Knight donated another $500,000 to Drazan on Tuesday. He's now given her $1.5 million, and it's all been within the month of October. And don't expect the Drazan ads to slow down, by the way. On Monday, her campaign spent nearly $1.3 million with an ad agency. Now, checking in on Democrat Tina Kotek. Her bank account holds more than $2.2 million. On Tuesday, the Democratic Governors Association, that's the Democratic fundraising arm, they pitched in another $500,000, bringing their total donations to over $6.3 million. That is some serious spending in their quest to keep Oregon blue. Kotek also received several donations between $50,000 and $100,000 in the past week or so. Most come from political action committees. And Kotek ads are also going to keep running. Get this, in the last week since October 20th, Kotek's campaign has spent approximately $2.6 million on political strategy and ad campaigns. Now, let's check in on non-affiliated candidate Betsy Johnson. She has $1.2 million on hand. By the way, her campaign finance numbers are being filed later than her opponents, so we only have data from October 19th and before. Now, they're not doing anything wrong. They're following the rules. I just want you to know that our numbers could be a bit outdated. There really aren't any notable contributions recently in her file. Most of the money is coming in from individuals and businesses, with most under $1,000. She's not spending a whole lot on ads either compared to her opponents. Back on the 17th, she did spend about $400,000 on political strategy and marketing firms. But I got to say, her record sort of feels to me like a candidate that's behind in the polls with time running out. Don't get me wrong, she has financial support, but not in the same way as Kotek and Drazen. But she has been adamant on the campaign trail that she is not dropping out, and she's in this thing until the very end. And who knows? The polls have been wrong before. We'll see how it all shakes out in just under 2 weeks. Well, that's what we know about the money in these races. What are your thoughts about it? The governor's race is the most expensive in Oregon state history. And most of you are telling us you're sick and tired of the ads that are running. All right, so let's put this on you. What's a better way that the candidates could be spending the money to win your vote? Let us know. Send us an email right now to thestory@kgw.com or leave us a voicemail. Call our phone number, 503-226-5090. Still to come on The Story. From shoplifting and politics, let's move to the great outdoors. A bit of a break from the rougher news to show you a rare encounter that was caught on camera. Stick with us. That's coming up next. Well, we've been a little bogged down by crime and politics during the show today. We wanted to turn to something a little different, featuring some of the incredible wildlife the Pacific Northwest holds. And in this case, a rare clash caught on camera. Initially, it looked like a group of whales tail slapping in the Salish Sea. That's along the Washington state border with Canada. But things were actually getting agitated, and it was soon discovered this is a sparring match between two humpback whales and a group of orcas. Erica Zuko from our sister station in Seattle tells us more.
Fins went flying in the Strait of Juan de Fuca as a couple humpbacks faced off with a group of Big's orcas, witnessed by whale watchers like Molly Nacarado.
I've loved whales my whole life, so I cried 3 times yesterday on the boat. Even doing this every day, like things like that just truly take your breath away.
At first glance, video shows a lot of splashing by active orcas, which brought tour boats closer. But look in the center of the frame, and you'll see a humpback, which normally avoid these killer whales.
There was definitely a lot of kind of harassment of each other.
Do we know why they do this?
So the orca that were in that encounter were bigs or transient orcas. So they've been known to eat seals, sea lions, harbor porpoise, and go after humpback calves.
But researchers say these whales were older, IDing them as known humpbacks Hydra, hailing from Hawaii, and Reaper, born near Mexico. It's possible they struck first. In spite of being 2 against around 2 dozen, past research has shown humpbacks harassing orcas hunting prey.
There have been a few occasions in the recent years that our naturalists have actually seen humpback whales come to the rescue of other animals like sea lions that were being chased by orcas.
In April, naturalists saw humpback Valiant acting aggressive near a group of Big's orcas. They believe he'd been attacked by some years ago, so he may have had some unfinished business. But overall, the Pacific Whale Watch Association says these encounters are rare.
Wow, how about that, huh? This time of year doesn't just prompt aggression between political candidates. Sometimes it's the wildlife, too. All right, keep sending your questions and comments to thestory@kgw.com. We're going to wrap things up right after this. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching and being here with me. But remember, the story, our story, well, that never ends. I'll see you tomorrow.